Good evening. This is like in a weird angle today. Good evening, everyone. It is, I forgot what day it is, May 3rd, 7:32. We're going to start our meeting with the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty.
Okay, public hearing in matter of proposed local law 20. Oh, I'm so sorry. Russian. All right. Trustee Robert Fritchie,
Present.
trustee Omar Lopez,
Present.
trustee Dana White, present, trustee Manuel Quesada,
Present.
Mayor Rick Levin.
Present.
Public hearing in the matter of proposed local law 2023, title of local law adding chapter 96, burning open to the Village of Ossining Code.
What is,
Tonight's our public hearing
right,
on the
so it's.
proposed local law. We made the changes that were requested by the board were put into the proposed local law. That's why we're now having the public hearing again. And it's open for any comment from the public.
Do we have to open it? It's already open and in progress, right?
No, well, it's now, it just has been opened
Okay,
by the clerk announcing.
so Jamie, I don't know if there's, oh, I do see, actually, this time I can actually see something. I don't see anybody on that would have any questions, right? Comment?
Well, there's one person, I'm not sure who they are. If you have any
Oh, that's right.
comments you'd like to make on the public hearing, if you could raise your hand and I will bring you over to speak. Okay, doesn't look like,
Okay, anybody here have any public comments on this? No, so it feels like we can close this particular public hearing. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Okay. Any comments from the board members on this? I mean, we've discussed it quite a bit, but if there are any comments maybe tonight? I'm looking to my left and right, so I don't see anything.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mayors and trustees announcements?
Okay, anybody to my left, any announcements? I didn't think so. Anybody to my right with some announcements for the public that they want to make?
This Saturday, we will have the honorary street naming for Dr. George Hill at Academy and State Street. Dr. Hill was a physician here in Ossining for decades in the 20th century and a bridge builder, a community activist, and someone who was very involved in establishing a lot of the programs that we have today. And really, I think an important figure in our village. So I think he really deserves this. And it will be at 2:30. So anyone can come.
It's going to be at 2:30 at State
State
and
and Academy.
Academy.
Yeah.
And our historian has done a wonderful job when she presented a very long story about Dr. Hill. You could also Google a lot of what he's done, and our historian has added to the information about him as well, which was really, and we'll be giving a proclamation for some of the trustees that will be going there. I am not going to be around, so I'm sorry to miss it. And I think we're also going to have the river sweep on May 6th, which is a big outing to really go out there throughout some communities, ours included, to really get down by the river and pick up trash and clean out the river. It's a very organized event. There is also the Green Ossining has their tag sale. The tag sale is really cool. And I think if I remember correctly, there are 47 locations. This is the most I've had in any one year. Basically, in layman's term, people have garage sales and tag sales. It's just a great way to recycle things amongst the community, and everybody makes a little money. And I think some of it goes to Green Ossining. And there's a map of all of the participating locations in that. And they have a website. Also, very excited to announce that after quite a bit of work, the staff, and the manager is actually remote today. Usually she's here. That we are having something that our communications person is terming Transformational Thursdays. Or transformative. What is it, Jamie? Transformative or transformational? Or is it both?
It's transformational.
So it really is to have public engagement in a series. So it's not one night where people show up, but actually it will be a series on Thursdays. They all start at the same time. It was in my mayor's message. It'll be on social media. First one is this Thursday, and it's a series throughout the summer that will have public engagement on all of the downtown projects, most especially the DRI projects. It isn't to redo the projects or reform them, but actually to have input at this phase of each and every project, to name a few: community center, Market Square, parking, waterfront. And there are also a couple of projects that are not actually village, they're in the village and one in the town, but they were part of the whole redevelopment for the downtown. So we're looking forward to get community engagement and really also put out information about the projects while we're at it. And so looking forward to that. And that will all I think of them will be on Zoom. So we are starting this Thursday, and we've already put out the list of all the remaining Thursdays. I think that's what we have for tonight. And I think we can go to administrative reports with the
Thank you. Administrative reports, Village Manager Karen DeTore, they have a presentation on the Recreation Advisor Board Chair Periods.
Okay, so right before the presentation, I'm just going to give a brief report on things that are going on in the village having to do with village projects and operations. So if you give us 1 minute, we'll go through that, and then we'll invite our Recreation Advisory Board Chair up for his presentation. First, I want to report that drafts of the proposed zoning text amendments that we're working with PACE to complete are about 75% done. The village had a call yesterday with the consultant from PACE, and we ran through some of the questions she had, but the next steps are for her to complete her revisions and circulate an internal draft that we can review and with the team. And then at that point, we will finalize the draft, including the ones that Nelson Pope Voorhees has developed, and we anticipate presenting all of this to the board in June. Next up, the pre-construction meeting for the pool and locker room renovations at the community center was held this morning, and we anticipate that work will start towards the end of the summer, and we're going to be working closely with the contractor to get timely information out to residents to keep them apprised of the construction schedule and to ensure minimal disruption during the construction period. Our Five Corners intersection concrete work should start next week, and that will include ADA improvements and a crosswalk at Maple Avenue and Spring Street to facilitate walking to the post office. Under the direction of Paul Fraioli, the DPW team has installed 3 solar-powered speed indicators to calm traffic. One's on Underhill Road. The other 2 are on Walden Avenue in front of the high school, and on Van Cortlandt Street, heading up the street towards Claremont and AMD schools. So these are part of our response to issues of concerns about safety and, again, promoting safety walkability, particularly in our school zones. So I want to thank everybody for that, and also for the police department who consulted with DPW on these projects. Elevator renovations are underway at 16 Croton with minimal disruption so far. We're also working on New York State Department of Transportation is initiating an engineering report to identify enhancements along the Briarcliff Peekskill Parkway, otherwise known as Route 9A. And this would be from Route 9 East to the Sawmill River Parkway. And the goal of this engineering scoping report is to identify short-term and long-term investments to facilitate improved safety and operations along that route. Mayor Rick Levin and I represent the village on the transportation partnering team, which also includes representatives from Briarcliff and the town of Austining. I just want to remind the board that they received a memo today summarizing the responses to an RFP that was issued for detailed design services for the Route 9 road diet. And this RFP was issued on in conjunction with a process that's required by the Department of State, which is administering the funding for this project. And the RFP was sent to 15 pre-approved local design service agreement consultants who are qualified to undergo this work based on state requirements. The village confirmed receipt of the RFP by 14 of the firms, and a final, the 15th was unresponsive. We did receive 2 responses by the deadline from 2 of the 15 firms. One is Creighton Manning, which is located at 145 Main Street in Austin. And the other one is HBEA Engineers located in Beacon. As required by New York State Department of Transportation, a staff selection committee that included our village engineer, Paul Fraioli, assistant village manager, Maddie Zahach, and myself, reviewed and evaluated the proposals to the selected firm. Should the board have any questions regarding the process, we can discuss this during executive session this evening if you would like. The process and the selection. And that covers village operations for this week. And with that, I would, unless there's any questions, I'd like to turn it over to our AB chair.
Any questions? No. Okay. Thank you very much. There is a presentation. Great. So hopefully, first of all, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to update everybody on the Recreation Advisory Board. We as a group have been meeting regularly every month, remotely for forever, not forever now. And we really try to be active and impactful in terms of the recommendations and suggestions that we make. So we went through this on Monday at our monthly meeting, and the group is, everybody agreed on what we're talking about here. So if you go to the next page, please. So just a reminder that the Recreation Advisory Board is actually one of the few multiple municipal boards. So we actually have representatives from the Village of Ossining, the Village of Briarcliff, and the unincorporated area of the town of Ossining. And the real focus is on, recommending policies and activities related to protection, maintenance, enhancement of the parks, as well as, the functioning of the Parks and Recreation Department, right? So fundamentally, kind of like we view, we're really trying to make sure that all of the assets, and there's a vast number of them, are used as much as possible, that we're reaching as many individuals as possible, and we're reaching all demographics, both age-wise, as well as location-wise, as well as socioeconomic, make sure we've got things that are really appropriate and diverse for everybody within the community from that standpoint. You can see the representatives there on the page. There are a couple of open positions still that we'd love to fill if anyone's interested, and if anyone's watching.
Is there one open position in the village?
One open in the village
I
and
didn't realize that. Okay.
town perspective. So, okay. The next page. Just as a reminder that the scope of the programs and the opportunity in the village and the town and is pretty large. A huge number of parks, lots of space that is available for use, and we tend to talk about a lot of these pretty much every month, right? And the next page. The next 2 pages are really kind of core to the message for y'all. Over the past year, we've been pretty busy. We've continued to meet virtually, like it says, provided inputs on the budgets. We provided a significant amount of input, we thought, in terms of the DRI submission process, specifically as it relates to activities within the rec center and from that perspective. And then we also spend a fair amount of time every month. We generally work with Bill Garrison to kind of talk about what are potential programs or what are potential new programs, both in the parks and from that perspective. One kind of interesting, neat kind of tidbit that we just talked about at the meeting this past month is that registrations are up significantly versus last year, which is fantastic. And so I think that speaks to the work that's being done by the department. From that perspective, the programs that they're offering are actually, hitting the need, and people are signing up for them, which is fantastic. So, right. We talked about summer camp. We talked about safety items as they come up to the board's attention, or as we identify them. And then, we currently provided input on some of the major capital projects, two big ones that from this past year, the Veterans Park, the renewal and the replacement of all of the youth equipment there in the middle of the park, significant kind of redo and making it much more accessible. From that perspective, we put a significant amount of port in place, so it's easy to have somebody who's needs to get to access it. They can get it straight from the parking lot onto a nice flat surface from that perspective, which is fantastic. And then a significant amount of work in the town on the Ryder Park ball fields, the new fences, which are both safety and a significant investment, but really make a difference in terms of people not getting hit by foul balls and cars not getting hit.
What did they do with the tennis courts? Did they get rid of those in Ryder Park?
No,
and replace-
there's still some work there going on, right? So
Is it still flooded? Is it still like a flood area kind of?
there is a bit of a flood area, so there's definitely some investigative work around what needs to be done to fix some of the core.
I know it's
drainage
a
issues.
town, I know it's a town park,
Right.
but nevertheless.
So we actually talk about that, right?
Yeah.
So they
Well, for
did.
you guys in your committee, of course,
Yeah.
because you're both town and village, but
Yeah.
I was just curious because there's so much talk about that every year.
Yeah, that they did resurface the upper one, or the one
Right,
closest to
no,
the
no,
street.
that I got.
And that's under significant use. And then we put some pickleball lines on that too. Currently, we just recently, we both provided input on both Ryder and Gerlach equipment upgrades. And so we've had discussions around that. And then another thing that we do on a regular basis is we ask for annual presentations from the local youth programs. The ones that use the parks and recreations, we ask to have them come and talk to us a little bit about, what are their policies, what are the procedures, what's their budget, make sure the budget's being spent appropriately, what kind of financial management, are they running the right kind of background checks, all that sort of stuff, to make sure they're working well. Any questions so far? The current year, we're really kind of continuing a lot of some of the same activities, right? Programming, maintenance improvements, utilization of resources. A couple of big activities that we're going to do this year. I think it was probably about 4 years ago now. We did a full survey of all of the parks in the area, put together kind of our thoughts and presentations. So we're redoing that this year. There's been a significant amount of work done across the parks over the last 4 or 5 years. So it's time to kind of go back out and revisit and take a look at what's next, right? In terms of what do we need to do over the next 5 years or 6 years or so. When that comes through, we're in the process of making the visits now. The objective is to have that done kind of by August, so that going into the budgeting season for the town and the village, that there will be a set of kind of concrete kind of activities on a park by park basis with a little bit of a prioritization for your consideration. So I think that's the timing that we're really trying to work on that from that standpoint. One thing that we're gonna we've added this year, and we had a surprise guest at one of our meetings. County Commissioner Latimer actually called in just to kind of get a sense of see what was going, and he asked if there was anything from a county perspective that might be considered. It's something we actually hadn't considered, so we'll have conversations about that in the whole right.
The correct answer always when asked by a county executive is we need funding, and just fill in the blank. No, it's nice that he did that. He does go to meetings.
It was a bit of a
By Zoom, yeah.
yeah, it was a bit of a surprise. He called in and said, hey, and we talked about this process, and he was like, when you're finished, absolutely. So we think we'll invite him to hear about it after we present it to the village and the town from that standpoint. Clearly, as part of this process and the survey, we'll continue to provide input on the capital spending. We did talk this past week about how there's a very significant program over the course of the summer in multiple events, whether that be down at the waterfront, or the acoustic sessions in the middle of the village, or the jazz sessions down at Gordian Park. I think the Parks and Recreations Department is going to make an attempt to have, somebody that each of those. And we, as Recreation Advisory Board, where we can, we're going to try and get people down there too, to listen and to answer questions and to take input on whatever it is might be from the public from that perspective. So I think that's a good way to kind of get additional input. The last thing I wanted to mention is that for those in the village that may be familiar, there's a Friends of Richard Wishney Park from that perspective. And we've been working with them, and we're looking to kind of kickstart a Friend of Ossining, Village of Ossining Parks, using that. As,
Who's them in this?
we
Who-
talked to Sue, and we talked to Richard
Okay,
as well. Okay.
I'm on the board of that. I just didn't even know it was happening. So it's good to know.
Okay. So we've had some conversations with them
Okay.
around, is there a way to potentially kind of leverage that structure to expand the opportunity, the kind of discussions, and from
Mhm.
that perspective,
Did you come up with something?
we're in the process.
You're
it's-
thinking it out right
you know,
now.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Right. Nothing's been structured, nothing's been formalized from that standpoint.
Okay.
Okay. But it's an opportunity to, expand the impact of, the people, and potentially, as a separate organization, potentially come up with ways similar, we kind of similar to, what's the one that supports the schools?
It's a- yeah.
Ossining Matters, right?
It's the same as everything. Friends of are usually fundraising independent 501(c)s. They don't actually, they're fundraising.
Yeah.
So PTAs have them. I think the library has Friends of. They have a foundation, they have a Friends of, and then they have the public money. It gets confusing for people because they're just fundraising
Mhm.
philanthropically and they don't make decisions about exactly what happens. But I think it's a great idea that we talked about it, I don't know, 5 years ago or something, that it started as Friends of Richard Wishney Park.
Yeah.
But to expand it to Friends of the Parks might allow it to maybe do a fundraiser here and there, and benches,
Exactly.
trees, a play, whatever.
Benches, whatever, right?
whatever
There are going to be
is
some
needed.
holes, right? In terms of, not everything is necessarily going to be able to be funded through the budgets. And so this is an
For sure.
opportunity
Yeah.
to come up with, where it makes sense, some incremental funds. And so
Nice.
that's something that we're looking to try and figure out how to jumpstart this year. Yeah. Then the last page is just a park map. Any questions?
Well, you left out the most important thing. What's the date of the annual barbecue where you guys invite everybody to sort of hear about the parks?
We actually didn't talk about that in the last meeting. So
Well, because of COVID, I don't think you've done. Maybe last year you did.
we
I
did
mean, I
last
used to
year.
be on, as you know, I was the liaison to this. I was
Yeah.
on the committee. But I only say that because I don't even remember where we were. You may have been with me, where we were explaining to someone that our folks actually in the committee walk through the parks.
Yeah.
Sort of 2 by 2. Everybody gets assigned a park or two. It's very informative for me because I never really walked the park with a clipboard, taking notes about, trees and bathrooms and trails. It's sort of like, you just use these places. You don't really look at them.
Yeah.
Parking, et cetera. It was really interesting, very helpful, and it really gives you a great inventory. Otherwise, we get a call about a tree falling here or this happening there. Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? But when you guys walk and you document and memorialize it, then you have the information. I think it's great. So I kid around about the barbecue, but I know you invite different people, whoever's available. But it's also for questions and for people to see what's going on. Very nice. Thank you. I'm
Thank
sure there
you.
are questions
And
and comments. I'm
appreciate
sure the
all this- appreciate
liaison
all the
has
support.
something to say as well. Maybe we'll start with the liaison.
Thank you, Mayor. That's something briefly before the meeting started. I was asking Pat to actually maybe next week or following week we actually meet up because there's obviously some internal stuff that I'm curious to see, get some feedback. One of the stuff, the interactive Thursdays that we are putting together, one of the topics is going to be the community center. And that's something that I think is essential for us to to discuss in more detail in the vision, the bigger vision of the community center in the next 5 years, more or less. So I figure just to put a timeline into that. But besides that, I think this is fantastic. I know the group has done this tour with the parks a couple of weeks back as well. They did a fantastic job on that. I saw some of the stuff in there that they did. So we'll work on getting you someone in there. So I'll talk to Jamie and try to follow up with that and get some interviews going, and we'll coordinate something like that.
Yeah.
But
It's a
thank you.
fun committee. I'm putting a plug in for that. It's like really, it's one of the most, that's not controversial. That's not what's the word I'm looking for? It's really, it's always been, and it's different people, but it's always been a group that really has such great cohesion and understanding the parks, the community center, the staff. It's always been let's get things done, move it forward with great, I think, love for our beautiful parks. And also they're some of the most used parks because we allow everybody to use the parks. Some communities will only allow their own residents to use it. We've always had it open to everybody. And that's challenging because there's just more people. And you guys have the committee has always been really involved in maintaining that. So I'm going to, I see the deputy mayor is leaning in with some questions or comments.
You were mid-word.
All I was going to say is that it really is a fantastic group of people that are involved with the committee, right? It's, they're always participating. There's no questions at all about going out and visiting parks and providing input and feedback and commentary. And they really are focused on, use and getting more people the ability to use it, especially within the village and the town. So it really is a fantastic group. Thank you.
Thank you. Great presentation. Detailed as always. So I have 2 toddlers. So I've gone to all of these parks many, many times. In fact, when it's any temperature above 40, we're there every day. So thank you for your work and making them as great as they can be. One is I'm curious about any insight you have into how our parks are similar or especially different from other parks, whether they be in the county or in other places. Is there anything that we do differently than other places?
So I'll speak for myself, and then I think, look, I see the Austin Youth Bureau logo, so I think Bill's on as well if he wants to add something to that. I think that we tend to think very specifically about things like accessibility, right? And about location and making sure that there are different activities and different opportunities available for all different ages and abilities, right? So I think we as a group tend to think about that fairly specifically and making sure that that's available. And when I'm at other parks, I don't necessarily see that. I see steps going down to a wood chip kind of a place. And, like the conversation we had on Monday was very specifically around, okay, we've done a good job about making Vets Park in the village accessible. What are we doing to make sure that Ryder Park in the town is accessible, right? And so it's like, how do we make sure that that happens? And we're willing to recommend that the money gets spent on things like Port and Place, right? So I think that's one thing that's different. I do think too that based on what I've seen, that we have a fairly broad, diverse set of activities available at our parks they're used nonstop.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't know if Bill's got anything to add, or if you want to add anything, Bill. Or
I was just going to say, we just have such a great staff, both with the village and with the town, with the Parks Department. And, no matter what needs to be done, everybody's all hands on deck. And that just shows. And, a lot of the people that work in the Parks Department are also village residents. So they take a lot of pride in the work that they do. And I think that shows too.
Thanks.
Secondly is, what would you say is the best way for people to give feedback around the parks? Both acute, like if they see something that's broken or that needs to be fixed, but then also chronic, if they see something that is an ongoing issue that they want to bring up that's less time sensitive.
So I think time-sensitive safety issues tend to.
planning to play lacrosse in college.
I'd say directly call the park department. You know, there's always somebody there. There's somebody at the front desk. There's somebody, you know, who's available, and they can quickly kind of disseminate somebody in either the town or the village to go and fix something if there's an immediate safety issue from that standpoint, right? If somebody wants to have a longer discussion about use and strategy, happy to, I think anyone on the board, on the Recreation Advisory Board, is more than happy to have those conversations. And I know we do from that standpoint.
Yeah, thank you. And the last one is Trustee White is leading the placemaking committee, and it's Bill.
It's Bill.
He's muted now. So this may be a place, because our parks are so heavily used and are so visible, that as you're taking these tours around the summer, that may be a place to have some sort of connection to think about what may be ways of creating placemaking within these parks, and in addition to the trees and the playgrounds and all that.
Okay. It's a good thought.
You took my comment.
Sorry. I wanted to big you up. It's a team effort. It's not just you, it's us.
We could go, put the bench there. No, I don't know. Well, thank you. Of course, our parks are gems. I like the idea of having a friends of the parks, because it does give you a chance to, I mean, we have a lot of parks though. I mean, but it does give you a chance to raise funds to do things that aren't in the budget. So, and it gets more people involved in thinking about our public spaces, because that's what they are. These are our public spaces. And I know that we've gotten many applications for the placemaking committee, and a lot of people say, oh, this park could use this or this part. So people are thinking about the parks and how they can become places of gathering, you know. I mean, people come together in the parks to do sports and to play on the playground, and, but a lot of, and there's events and stuff. But I think we can always look for ways to bring the community together in our parks. And so that's something we could help with too.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good idea too.
Omar took one of my pieces away too, but it's okay. Just wanted to expand on it with the Youth Advisory Board. I don't know how it is today. When I was on the committee, there are some parents of younger people, but that's a hard age group because they're so overloaded with everyday life and children and all that. But there might be an opportunity to also include them here and there, specific topics, because they use the parks, I think, differently. Or there might even be opportunities for how might a park be used. The truth is, that's good about your committee, and you will want to take the dust off, is you're one of the committees that, when I started as a trustee, that memorialized a lot. The chairs of this committee kept pretty good notes for, not forever, but for a while. Some committees did not have great notes beyond maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, but you guys have a lot of notes, so that when people come to you, take out, so that you're not hearing the same thing and say, we looked at this and this is what we did, so that people understand sort of the history of some things and why things are where they are, because then they're able to start there and not backwards, but actually start there and go, oh, that's why you moved that shack over there. Now I understand. Okay, so to improve that, let's go this way. So I just think as we involve more people, just remember that your committee memorialized quite a few of these reviews, from the dog park to some development that went on the borders of the parks, to how a sitting park actually is designed as a sitting park. It's not an accident that there aren't any tennis courts in the sitting park across from a school. Like, there are purposes to some where grandparents and grandchildren can gather rather than be in the middle of a basketball game. That there are sections that I learned that when I was on the committee. I just share that thought with you, because I think that in the next 2 to 3 years, especially because the community center is part of your committee, parks actually oftentimes, it's always, do we talk about the parks or community center? But a community center, as everybody already knows, is one of my favorite parts in the community, because it brings everybody together. We're investing a lot in enhancing it and bringing it up to date. So you guys, I think, will play a role. I think you guys will as well. And maybe the Youth Bureau could be brought in at certain points. I think that will represent the community well. So I appreciate the time.
Excellent.
I have one little one. So one of this is all very, not very personal, but it's personal to my situation. So I think I took these two little ones. We're looking into swim classes, and the community center has swim classes. They are very popular. Once they open up, within minutes, they are full. And normally with a full program, it's like, well, basketball fills up. Well, what are you gonna do? But with swim, it is both recreation, but also life-saving. So if there's any way to create additional opportunities, even if it's in a more limited basis for young children to have the opportunity to learn this life-saving skill of surviving in water, that would be great.
Got it. We actually, one of the things that the park department did this year was actually, because we offer such an amazing swimming program, and because the pool is used so much, they actually did a tiered registration this go around, where registration was held only for the residents for the first 3 days, to make sure as many people as possible get in, and only then was it available to other folks from that perspective. So it's really exactly trying to fix some of those questions for, especially for the residents.
Okay. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you very much.
Anybody-
Really appreciate your time.
Anybody else? Just a reminder for people tuning in, who tune in midpoint. It's an advisory group that advises the board and has the superintendent on the committee that really makes, together, we work together to make the recommendations. And you guys have gotten really smart, because you know to come a month before budgets discussions happen.
Yeah.
We tell that to all the committees, but you guys do it. So appreciate your time. Thanks, Pat. Say hi to everybody.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You enjoying yourself as liaison?
All right, thank you. Next we have Corporation Counsel, Stuart Kahan.
Thank you, Janice. Good evening, folks. If any of you are or have been interested in performing a wedding, you can now do so in New York State. You can get a one-day license to do it. And I know
Thank you to
from
Sandy Gillip. I
Thank
think
you,
worked on
Sandy
that
Gallop.
for a long time.
And
Bye,
I
Pat.
know from Sue Donnelly that they have already been getting those applications in. Remember, it's just for the one day, so can't expand it.
And it's in New York.
New York.
Yeah, so you can't do it here and then go to a friend's house in New Jersey
it's New
and
York only.
Colorado. You got to do it here in New York
New
State.
York only. Since we have now completed the first third of the year, I thought I would give you a further update on foils to let you know where we are. As of today, the village clerk has docketed 352 FOIL requests for the year. At the same time last year, in 2022, there were 257. In 2021, there were 226, and in 2020, there were 73, same time. Remember, 2020, of
was
course, was the
COVID.
COVID year.
Yeah, thank you.
But it is a 36.9% increase just over last year. If the numbers hold, and we see no reason that they will not, we would expect to see somewhere around 1,100 FOIL requests for the year. That compares last year to 732 and the year before 731. To date, 57% of FOIL requests go to the building department. There are a few for
What percent?
planning.
I'm sorry.
57%.
Got it.
35% go for Ossining Police, which means that 9 out of every 10 FOIL requests go to just those two departments. I continue to take my hat off to the folks in the clerk's office who docket these. I think today we docketed 10 or 12. They
I
just
think there
came
were
in.
12.
But Sergeant McGovern, Teresa over in an OPD do a phenomenal job. The people in the building department do a great job. We I get every 2 weeks from Janice an update on active foils. The building department provides a closed foil list every week, so we see where things are going with that. But the numbers just simply keep going up, and it is obviously time constraints. It's time involved. They are becoming more complicated foils because, particularly in the case of OPD, we're getting a lot of foils for body cameras. We're getting a lot of foils for different types of personnel records, different types of blotter entries, which take an immense amount of time. And even though we have 20 days to respond, in many cases, we just have to ask for additional time. There's a limit to what we can charge in terms of fees. There are some times where we can charge based upon hourly rates, but the state limits that quite a bit. So it's just to recognize that with everything, those numbers are, continually going up. It is certainly hoped that with the Laserfish system, we will see, at least as relates to the building department, a decrease in those numbers. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of these documents have been publicly available before, and the realtors still foil for them. And it's just, it just, constantly occurs. But it's just to note, when we get, for example, and the chief knows this, if we get requests for personnel files, they've got to be redacted. Same if we get them over next door. Body camera images, you got to deal with certain things because there are certain things you can't send out. So it takes a lot of time. As I said, there are certain circumstances where fees can be charged, but in most circumstances, it's just the time that we have to spend. I get every FOIL request more initially just to see that they're going to the right department, and if they're from OPD or from some places, to see who is actually making the request and what's being asked for. But also I serve as the FOIL appeals officer, so that if there is an appeal from a FOIL request that is denied or that is not responsive to what the person thinks, we have to deal with those. But it's more just to make it clear, the time that is being spent. As I said today, 12 were docketed, and it's just a matter of they come in. We're also getting some that a lot. This week we got about 5 or 6 that were handwritten that come in, so they had to go through those. So it's a lengthy process. We have some that we get every month. We have one company that wants every building permit that has been issued in the past month. So we basically developed a spreadsheet and we provide it to them. But it's a very lengthy process, and it's an immense amount of staff time. That's the best way to say it. Everybody is doing their very best. And I can say this, with the exception of, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 foils, we get the answers out within the 20 days. So those responses are out fast, but it is, quickly, building department, I know, has a person who's dedicated to just doing that. Our other departments, we have people who work on it, but they obviously are working on other things as well. So it's just for for everyone to note, what requests come in. And as I mentioned last time, a FOIL request is a request for documents. One of the requests that came in today was to say, well, I have a complaint about my neighbor parking his car. That's not a FOIL request. So, it gets responded to as denied, still has to be dealt with. So this is more just, a notice for the board. I was surprised to see that the numbers between building and OPD are much closer than they have been in past years. But the other point to note, the OPD foils are much more complicated and involved. There's a lot more information that's sought. They're longer. Everything is pretty much, a lot of stuff is provided electronically now. We give links so that people can find the information. But as I said, to provide, blotter entries, you still have to go through and redact a lot of the blotter entries. You got to redact the personnel files. And all of that, it takes time. And unlike building department files, where generally there's very little that has to be redacted, OPD personnel, there's an immense amount that has to be redacted. So it's just, it's a cost, unfortunately, of doing business that all municipalities deal with. I just wanted to point out that we are seeing this year a significant uptick from the last 2 years. And there's no reason to think that those numbers will not continue to increase and that we won't, break 1,000 sometime in November, most likely. So just to note what's going on with the foils. And otherwise, tonight, we do have a resolution calling for a public hearing with regard to revising portions of our vehicle and traffic law, particularly dealing with stop, stand, and parking violations, plus a fee schedule, all of this which we discussed at last week's work session. And that's it from the law department.
Great, thank you. We have I'm so sorry, go ahead. Any comments?
Okay, thank you, Stuart. Anybody have anything? Questions or comments? So when we do the budgets, you just have to look at the numbers. I'm sure that the Freedom of Information legislation passed by, they didn't perceive or think about time limitations and cost to municipalities and redacting personnel files and, websites now that you have to look at digital information, unfortunately, and they'll probably take years before the legislator at the state rethinks this. Because I think the intention was very good. But when we do the budgets this year, we're going to have to look at the amount of hours. But some of these are just asking for documents, which people just ask for from government. I mean, that's just, like you said, it's the way we do business. People want documents. So thank you. And we'll see where we are at the end of the year.
Great, thank you. Next, we have Police Chief Kevin Sylvester.
Not all the foils are that exciting. And since it was foiled, I'll share with the board that someone wanted to know my uniform purchases. I wear a size 10.5 Rocky boot. It's the only one I've bought for the last 10 years. I purchased it for $89.99 from New England Sportswear in Danbury, Connecticut, where we send everybody for initial issue. That foil can now go to everyone.
Okay. Well, people do ask for intricate things. They also ask for phone numbers. And where
For
we
those
live.
interested, I've given a tutorial on how I polish them for our new dispatcher.
Sure, yeah.
It's interesting stuff. In more important police department news, you may have seen some traffic earlier today. The law enforcement torch run passed through Ossining. It covers all of Westchester County and now partners with Rockland and Putnam as well. That is the torch that'll be lit a few weeks from now upstate for the Special Olympics. It's carried by police officers all over the state. We had 9 officers running the torch run today. Many years we don't have as many officers that are available to run it or willing to run it. It's an all volunteer task that we do. They carry it about 3.5 miles from South High and Geneva Road up to Croton Point Avenue. So good to see all of our folks out there today running together with our counterparts down at Sing Sing Prison from Docks, who also run the Ossining leg with us.
I saw it on Facebook. I happened to look at it a little while ago. It looked great, but where is it held, the special, like where the torch is lit, but where is it? Do they choose different towns every year?
I believe it rotates, and I think it's in Albany this year.
Is it ever like in towns like ours or? It's
Not
only
that
in
I'm
the big
aware of. The
cities?
torch run's only gone on since 1986. The Special Olympics has been around much longer. I'm not aware of it ever being downstate. Usually things like this, they try and have them centralized for all of the folks upstate. So
Okay.
this is typically
They also have
not
more
only
space up there,
it's
but
a more expensive venue to be in Westchester County. It's also a long haul for the Buffalo crowd. So typically somewhere in central New York. Other things we have going on this past week, we partnered with the school district to bring the One Pill Can Kill seminar, partnering with Westchester County Police Department, presenting at Ossining High School for parents. We also spoke in the participation in government class in Ossining High School. We have 4 officers headed to child safety seat installation school this week so that we can renew our program of doing child safety seat installations. Because of COVID, the officers that were previously assigned to do that, their certifications had lapsed. So it's also something you typically do earlier in your career. Climbing around in tight spaces is something our younger cops like to do. So sending some new people to that. They're already planning some safety seat inspection events for after they graduate, presumably with certifications that they'll pass the school. Last week, we also had active shooter training in Roosevelt School, where we partnered with Portchester Police Department and their SWAT team, where our tactical team actually did walkthrough and simuation exercises in the school so that they can test out everything from communications to access, partnership. They had OVAC on site with them, so they do the whole exercise from top to bottom. And we're right now working on our calendar of summer events, so looking forward in the next couple of weeks to breaking lots of news about things we'll have for kids this summer. That's all from the police department for today. Thanks.
Okay, any questions, comments? Good.
Okay, thank you. Organizational announcements. Any
Jamie, you see
announcement?
anybody up there?
No.
Anybody here for?
Sorry,
organ-
I was on mute. So there are 3 people on here. If you're interested in speaking, please raise your hand. Doesn't look like anyone wants to participate.
Okay, anybody here, organizations? Nope.
No. Public comment on agenda items. Anyone? to
Again,
comment?
anybody in the gallery, if you're interested, please raise your hand. Nope, nobody.
Anybody here about the agenda items? Okay, go
No.
ahead.
Visitor recognition,
I'm sorry, what was that?
visitor recognition.
Visitor recognition. Visitors shall be accorded 1 3-minute opportunity to address the board on issues not relating to the agenda, but of relevance to the common good of the village. Jamie, anybody on there that is interested in that?
So far, no one has raised their hand. So if there's anyone in the gallery there that would like to speak, maybe they'll raise their hand in the meantime.
Okay, anybody here? Hello,
Hi.
Would you like me to
June
take
Car-
time?
I'm sorry, yeah, it's, what did I
3
say? 3
minutes.
minutes.
3 minutes, okay.
June Carver, 19 Lincoln Place. And first question is the riverfront cleanup, what day was that?
May 6th, I believe. Are we double checking? Do I have the wrong date? I'm right? Yeah, I wrote down the
And-
May 6th.
Is there a time or?
You can go, I have to look it up, so keep talking and I'll look it up. in my-
A couple of other things. I wanted to address the report on the Con Ed issue as far as the environmental cleanup for the Water Street project with the affordable housing. The last time that I was here and I asked about what came out of it, you said it would take a couple of weeks. The village manager said it would take a couple of weeks to try to find some kind of information on time frame, what's happening with it. So that's my first question.
Okay. I'm going to answer it, but that's not actually the purpose of these questions. The purpose is for the public to address the board, not with questions, but
Okay.
with comments or issues that they want the board to be aware of. It's not actually set up for a conversation. But we don't have a large crowd, so it is just before the meeting. It's not a
Okay.
question and answer period.
Okay,
That's not
so
the
where,
purpose.
so if not here, where would I address these questions to?
The board. It's BOT at the Village of Ossining. You could do it in writing and ask us any questions, and either I or other members of the board and or the Corporation Council or anybody else will answer depending on your question. So if you have a question that I feel like we can get you more information, or that's how we answer questions specific to a topic. To this particular question, simply because I asked that question before the meeting started of the builder himself, it's just a coincidence.
Mhm.
His response, word for word, actually, because I was reading it and I just sent it to the board before the meeting started, is that they have met with Con Ed. They don't have an answer directly yet from Con Ed. They're still working together to get this cleanup going, because the builder wants this to get going already. Con Ed is not moving as quickly as we would like them to, but that doesn't mean they're not moving. It just means not as quickly as we want them to. So that is the answer that I got.
Okay, so,
And we don't control what Con Ed does or doesn't do. It's not like we have control over.
So because you have stated that it's not a question and answer or dialogue with each other, I will address that by email with you, along with anything else that I have here as far as a question. But I do have a comment, because I have been coming here for the past couple of months to every meeting, work session, along with the legislative meetings, and I have asked several questions. I have asked several questions that have been answered. And now 2 months later, you tell me that I cannot answer a question. I can ask, this is not a dialogue. And yes, I have, I've heard several times that there is a 3-minute rule. But in one of the meetings, you, Mayor, stated when time was up that was for when there were a lot of people here. So there has to be a time frame. You said that was made because when there are large groups of crowds, you got to give some time frame. It's me and only me ever speaking here. So little old me, you're gonna give 3 minutes, and then tell me basically now that I have to email. I am not happy about that, because if you have an open meeting, I should be able to address the board without having to email, wait for a response, email back and forth when you're right in front of me. We talked about transparency.
So let me answer that.
Okay.
Number one, you get treated exactly the same way everybody else does. There are times when there are a lot of people, there are times when fewer. As a courtesy, because you're the only one here, there was no reason not to answer your questions. That's a courtesy. The purpose of these meetings is open to the public. It is not a public meeting. Those are two different things. They're open to the public, so the public can sit here, 1 person, 0 people. It's recorded. People can look at it later tonight, a month from now, 10 years from now. It is transparent in the sense that it is open to the public. That is not the same as a public meeting. This is not a meeting for the public to come and address with a back and forth. It is a meeting for the public to be heard. It's not a conversation, and it's not because we're sitting here and if you want to speak to any of your elected legislative body, that's us, email, you can meet with us. I have coffee with people, you could do what, and you have met. You've met with me, you've met with Karen Diatori, you've met with other people. That is transparent to that, and that is where conversations occur. And on these agendas that are put out for the public, it says exactly how many minutes people get. It doesn't matter how many. As a courtesy, when there's sometimes only 1 person here and we have the time, we answer questions. And that's why I said it last time too. But actually the way the rules run and the way they do it here, they do the Board of Ed, they do in other boards, there is a time limit, and it is to hear the public. That is not the same as a public meeting where there's a conversation back and forth. We are very accessible to people. Again, emails, conversations, meetings, etc. That is how we converse with the public. This is a work session for the staff and our direct reports to bring issues in front of the legislative bodies, and we legislate on suggestions and issues that they have that are rising. And the public can come and hear it for themselves. They can go on Zoom and see it, or they can look at the recordings at their convenience and write to us and ask us questions once they see it. That's the purpose of the meeting. Different than public hearings and public meetings.
Can I address that?
Sure.
So a couple of things. You talked about a work session. This is not a work session.
There's work sessions and legislative.
Exactly. This is legislative, where it's open for me to comment or
Right.
to, as you stated, to be heard.
Right.
If I cannot ask a question, what do you want? What is it that you could hear from me if I can't ask any questions? If I have questions,
I think you're misunderstanding being
Okay.
heard and being a Q&A session. Being heard is you're going to make a statement, we take notes. And if you want to pursue it further, you email us. the time frame doesn't allow us to go back and forth like we're doing right now. If you can come and make a statement and say, I'm bringing this to your attention, whatever way you want to do it. But to keep going back and forth, that's not what this is about. I know, I understand it's frustrating, but the best way to ask questions is to email us, email the whole board, just email BOT@Village of Ossining. Somebody will get back to you.
Okay. I will accept that in as you see fit, but I will say this, we're going back and forth because you're going back and forth with me. I was just asking a simple question and we're going back. So I understand that you don't have the time, but I sat here for hours watching, listening to you guys. Listening, just sitting here quietly listening to you. You're going to tell me for 4 minutes that I can't ask you a question and you feel that we're going back and forth? That's disturbing to me. It's not frustrating, it's disturbing to me. But I will email each and every one of you whatever questions that I have, and also create a meeting to be right in front of you and have those. But it's disturbing that you would send me on my way. I've sat here quietly for meetings after meetings impatiently. And you're now telling me you can't give me 4 minutes to answer a question? Some public officials you are. Come on, let's go.
Okay, can we continue? Village Board resolutions. Approval minutes, April 12th, 2023, special meeting. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the April 12th, 2023 special meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
Second.
All in
Comments?
favor?
Good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approval of minutes, April 19, 2023, resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of April 19, 2023 regular meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
Second. Any comments?
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Approval of voucher details, May 3rd, 2023, resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated May 3rd, 2023, in the amount of $755,000, $683.96. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second. Any comments?
All in favor?
Aye.
Call for public hearing, proposed local law 2023, title A Local Law Amending Chapter 250, Vehicles and Traffic of the Village of Ossining Code. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of Village of Ossining hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at 7:30 p.m. on June 7th, 2023 at the Municipal Building, 16 Crown Avenue, first floor ballroom, Ossining, New York, to consider proposed local law 2023 title A Local Law Amending Chapter 250 Vehicles and Traffic of the Village of Ossining Code, and if it would further resolve that the proposed local law amends Chapter 250 by adding new definitions detailing in Article 3 parking, standing, and stepping, violation of the village code relating to stopping, standing, and parking, setting out the schedule of fines for such violations, and detailing the increase in fines upon defendants' not appearance, and before the resolve, the members of the public are invited to attend the public hearing in person at the above referenced location, and before the resolve that those members of the public who want to attend, participate in the public hearing remotely, can access will be available via the Zoom platform, and before the resolve that the comments regarding to the proposed local law will be accepted by the Board of Trustees at BOT@villageofossining.org. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any comments?
All in favor?
Aye.
Yep, license agreement, 185 and 189 Main Street, resolved that the following review by the Corporation Council and village manager is authorized to sign license agreements with TF2 Realty LLC and TF1 Realty LLC, the owners of 185 and 189 Main Street. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second. Any comments? Stuart, just remind me what this is for again?
These are with regard to the dumpsters that have
Ah.
now been removed so that they can, these two properties need to want to put fences up, which would be on the village property so that they can close off where the dumpsters are going to be.
And they're going to maintain it and take care of it, et cetera. et
They would
cetera.
maintain the entire area. That is correct.
Okay, and they're not going to be parking more cars back there because now it's fenced in, right? You guys are, I see the head shaking. Excellent. Just putting it on the public record. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor?
Questions?
Oh, it's good.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approving elected official reimbursement request, whereas the Board of Trustees recently adopted expenses reimbursement policy for elected officials. And whereas Mayor Levin advised the Board of Trustees on her intention to attend the annual meeting of the New York Conference of Mayor and Municipal Office NYCOM, scheduled for May 17 to 19 at the Bolton Landing, New York. And whereas trustee Fritchie advised the Board of Trustees of his intention to attend to the FDIC International Conference and Convention from April 24th to 29 in Indianapolis, Indiana. And whereas the majority of the full board recognize that the two events are related to the village business and are reasonable distance from the village, now therefore be resolved that the Board of Trustees approves to request by Mayor Levin and trustee to attend the NYCOM and FDIC international meeting pursuant to the expense reimbursement policy for elected officials. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
So I understand that I can't vote for me going and he can't vote for him going, but he can vote for me going and I can vote for him going, but you wrote it in as
I
one
didn't
thing.
split the resolution. So I would ask that you two recuse yourselves and we just have the other three.
But
do
in
the
the
vote.
future, if that does happen, could you just split it
We
up?
could
Because
split
if
it
there
up,
were
of
only
course.
4 of us here, that would actually be a bit of a.
Absolutely, not a problem.
Yeah, thanks.
What happens if there are 4 of us that want to go?
Yeah,
to a conference?
that's why he would have to do it separately. So.
No, but if there are 4 of us that want to go to the same conference, for
Have to be
example.
separate resolutions for each one of you.
No, no.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
yeah.
no,
There would
bu-
have-
buffer.
That's what I just said.
Yeah,
There would
yeah,
have-
okay.
That's why I said to Stuart, I get it this
Got it, got it,
time.
got
We
it.
didn't think about this in advance, but we should do them separately.
Yes.
If there's more, I didn't know you were going.
I think the
actually.
way that he said it, the reason they clicked is the same event, different people,
Yes,
two events, 2 people. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
and we can always discuss. It's not a rubber stamp. It's new, so but we could always discuss if there are issues or other people want to go and whatever. It's open for discussion. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You're gonna hold out, right? You're gonna make him split the resolution so that we have to do it.
Oh, my God. Manny.
Go ahead. Yes, I agree.
Yes.
This guy.
And one delayed vote.
Okay. Thank you. Continuing business of the board?
Mayor, did we want to discuss the placemaking committee at this point?
I think we should actually and get that sort of done.
I know we had initially talked about it in exec, but since it's not a specific matter as to a specific individual, it would really be more appropriate
Okay.
now. So and it would be continuing business because we've discussed the placemaking committee before.
Okay.
So that's why we thought we could.
So
do
what
it
are we
now.
discussing? What do we want to do?
I think, and Karen, you can help me out here as well. I think part of this is we've gotten, I believe, 20 applications.
25.
25. The question is, when do you sort of cut it off? When do you start making your decisions? And so that we can sort of move to the next steps.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, refresh my memory. How many members?
11
20?
at the most.
Not bad.
You can go from 7 to 11.
You wrote 7 to
I would
11.
take the recommendation of the cutoff date from the liaison to the.
I mean, we only just started pushing it out on social media last week, right? I mean, I think we had a kind of a first surge. Now we're having a second surge.
Why
And
don't
it's
you make it
been,
like,
it hasn't even been a month. I mean.
Yeah,
has
why
it?
don't you just make it like the end of May or something? Would that make it a month, or you want to make it June 15th or
I
something
think the
like
end
that?
of May is fine because
No, but refresh, I thought you had some deadlines as well, like when do you want them to commit it to?
oh, well,
kinda
the only
start, so-
deadline we had was beginning this summer. It was very vague. It's the only deadline we
They've
had.
got time because it's a new committee.
You're doing an interview process, I assume, correct?
Yeah.
The end of May might be real long.
No, at the end of May to accept oh, you're saying it'd be, yeah.
Well, I think we can start, I don't know if we have to wait for all, I mean, if we could start interviewing people, do we have to have, don't have to have all the applications in. Believe me, we got plenty to get started on.
I'm also going to say that it's a little bit, we try to get some symmetry amongst committees, right? Like chairs or whatever, but each one's a little bit nuanced because they do different things. But I think in the beginning you had stated, look, there could be this council, this committee, but then there could be other people who are interested. So I would start making a list and saying, like, if you're not on the actual, what do you call it, a committee or a council?
Kitty.
Committee?
Yeah, you can still contribute
We'd
and you
still
can
like
still
to
be.
have you as
Yeah.
our whatever, name it because you want them to help, because maybe 2 or 3 people have exactly the same backgrounds and qualifications. Maybe one person wants to work, but they don't have the time element. But I think you could start interviewing. The thing is, how are you going to interview just you? Don't you need
No, I
like
don't want it to
people?
be just me.
So who's interviewing with you? Because normally we
I
have like
don't
other
know,
people.
we haven't really discussed that.
Okay, so you want to keep it open maybe to the end of May, like midnight on the last day of May or something, because you got to put, like, so people know this is it. And if I did it June 10th, I missed the boat, and you're able to say that. That's one thing. You want to get some help interviewing. Do you have anybody in mind, or you want to think about it? Do you want to?
If anybody from any other from this board wants to do it, that's great. There are people who are experts in this area who could do it. But I'd like to have, at least 2 people for everybody. I was thinking of doing something a little different. Like normally we just talk to people on Zoom. But I was thinking about inviting people to go to the place that they think could use a little placemaking and to meet there and to meet in person. Because and to have a different type of conversation, I find Zoom interviews limiting. So I would like to have meetings in person wherever possible.
Can I ask you a question? And I would love to be part of that,
Okay.
obviously schedule
Yeah.
work-wise permitted.
Okay.
Obviously, but out of the 20 resumes that you have, I'm sure you sort of briefed through it, or I don't know if you
Yeah,
read anything else, but do they qualify for the sort of requirements that it was a broad requirement?
The most
in a way?
part, the requirements are pretty broad.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. I
But
mean, it
we
was very
have,
broad,
we
but-
have 2 people who teach placemaking at the college level. We have artists, fine artists. We have people in project management. We have people who are interior designers. We have all sorts of,
It's pretty cool.
That's
Any
yeah,
landscape,
people.
any landscape?
we
architect?
have a horticulturalist. And landscape designer, and I want to get, we have some young people, yay.
Cool. So
And
out of all those resumes, is anything missing from that part that you remember of the qualifications that we were looking for? Is anyone like argument's sake?
well, there's someone who lives in the town, so that's a problem. But
That's 19 resumes.
yeah, well, it's really 25 and it's going to be
Oh,
more.
sorry, 35.
We're going to end up with at least 30, I'm pretty sure.
I mean, if you do it until the end of May, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, I mean, if you want, we can talk afterwards and try to schedule
Mhm.
something. And I love the idea, meeting in a place that they would like to see something.
One of my favorite applications was someone that, what place would you like to see get a little work done? Besides my face. And, sorry. And she said the bus stop on Spring Street, which is one of mine too. So I was immediately
Well,
felt,
that's actually is
simpatico
in the
with it.
plans.
Yeah, it is
to
in the
be
plans,
reworked,
but-
as we learned on
yeah.
Arbor Day.
and I'd like to bring in people who are new to this entire thing and haven't been a part of something before. And that's pretty much everybody,
That's great.
with some exceptions. And, I think we've got some really great people. It's going to be really hard because we want diversity. We want a range of ages, a range of experiences. It's not going to be easy. And I don't want, I want people to feel, even if they're not on this committee, that they can be part of this. That's the thing. You know, maybe, I don't know, and people are like, how much work is it going to be? I'm like, I have no idea. You know, we haven't done this before, but you know, we're going to do stuff, you know, and it's going to be a very varied, you know, some stuff we might start, other stuff is stuff that other people are doing that we might, you know. But I think it's going to be a very, very strong group of people, and I would like to have us meet in person wherever possible. I just think, you know, Zoom, I don't know. I just don't find it.
Yeah, forget about Zoom.
We're getting that,
Let's meet
yeah.
let's meet in a place in the village of Austin where it has a meeting to it,
Mhm.
whatever that may be.
Well,
So,
you could meet right in Market Square and sit at those tables and sit in one of the parks, you know.
yeah, it doesn't matter. Any.
But it's
anywhere-
going to take some time, which I think we should get started.
I agree. So if you want, maybe schedule, you know, I'm gonna say the weekends being
Yeah, the
selfish.
weekends, yeah.
You know, be like at least we can pick three potential candidates for
Mhm.
this. You know, be like, all right, we're gonna do an hour more or less, you know, for us to go from place A, B, or C, or whatever they may be. So let's do that.
Mayor, might I suggest the second legislative meeting in June is June 21st. We're not going to meet in the July legislature. So perhaps we can sort of look that maybe that's when, if you have done your stuff, we could have appointments by then, because that's the first day of summer anyway, and you're sort of starting. Otherwise, you're into the middle of July. So, I mean, just as something to think of, you're not locked into it. We're not setting an
Right, 'cause we're
agenda.
creating, you have the opportunity here to create something totally new. And it's not a legislative requirement, and it's not a government requirement. It's really how you want to do it, and it can create itself. You could call the person in Tarrytown or some other place and ask them if they'll help you interview the final candidates or even the first one, so you get a sense of what they went through. I mean, it's really an open playing field, in my opinion, of what you want to do. I'm happy to help as well. You could do, you and Manny do a few, I could do a second round, or you and Manny do a few, I could do a few with you, somebody else could do it. I'm sure somebody on staff, if they want to be participatory.
Oh,
I'd love it if maybe Maddie wanted to help or
I thought
Karen.
Paul wanted to be part of
Paul,
this.
yep, Paul, you know, wants to be part of it, yeah.
Yeah, he had mentioned it. So I would say if you have a team of two, you could probably do 3 to 4
Yeah,
at a clip. 5 days, you basically, you know, with different people.
Yeah, it
always
doesn't
the
have to
same.
be, you know, it doesn't have to be just like the mayor said. It could be, you know,
Right.
random. You know,
And
if I'm available, then awesome. If I'm not, you know, we
Right.
can
Some
pick
of your interviewees, maybe given their jobs, maybe they travel, maybe prefer Zoom. Okay, so you could do.
Yeah, if somebody said I can
Like
only do it
Zoom.
on Zoom, fine, but if they
Yeah.
can meet in person, I would love to do that.
Right, so I think it's just an open playing field. You create your own and create what you're gonna work on, create your agenda. You're also not responding. When we did the landlord tenants, right, Manny, it was like a whole, you know, it was very prescriptive in some ways. And you had to follow certain things, and there were laws involved. Not so much an open
Yeah,
playing
this-
field,
yeah.
but you really guys can create anything you want. So I think even people interviewing, you could ask people from the clerk's office if you want to, you know, as we said in Richard Wishney Park, Sue is on that board. She's worked with Parks. She might be interested in some, who knows? I'm just saying you've got like, the world's your oyster. And you could just play.
Mm-hmm. Sounds
So
fun.
I think the reason that was brought up today is you could play, but we need to at least have a field for you to play in. So a few dates put in the sand, stakes, so that the staff also knows, so that when we collect resumes and somebody says, when is it due? I'm really busy. They have to be able to say, this is due this time. Interviews will take over a 4-week period. Or is there one interview, or is there a follow-up? Like just a few things that, you know, Jamie gets a lot of this stuff that she. can
Yeah, I'll
add
talk to Jamie about how, Jamie, you usually do the scheduling, don't you?
We're gonna have to talk about
Yeah,
that
we're gonna talk
offline
about that.
because we have a lot of stuff going
Yeah.
on. So let's have an offline conversation. I'm
Yeah.
sure we'll be able to help, but let's, lot of things happening. So I want to set realistic expectations about the timing. So.
Okay.
All right.
Just remember, though, that if I heard it right in the presentation, the placemaking does get, which is why Paul wants to be involved too. So, which is great.
And Bill Garrison is going to get sucked into this at some point
Right,
too.
So, well, we don't call it sucked into it. We say that they enjoyably will participate. Because some of the DRI stuff, they'll want to have a say. I mean, that's actually part of the purpose, is to have a say, not after the fact, but during, as things happen, or have their own ideas. So we'll see where this path leads. So it's in some ways great opportunity. But they're not really part of stopping things. They're more part of like ideation and thoughtfulness about what we want to do in different spaces. Anyway, you've got lots of people to just pull on. And they just, I think Stuart rightfully said, just put some dates.
It's very, very
around.
important. We have some Spanish speakers.
Yeah.
Very important. And, we really need to represent who this village is. So the many people this village is.
Yes, the many people. So why, anyway, I think time, dates, space, due dates, those kind of basic, things the staff would need, we would need, and then you move towards that.
It may be we send an email, I could even do it, to each of the applicants saying, we're going to begin the interview process. Are you available to meet in person? And If not, we can do Zoom, but you need to start scheduling people.
And then you have to have a Zoom because she has to. give you
Yeah,
the Zoom.
yeah.
Okay. Karen, you're gonna have to have somebody help Dana sort of set that up, Zoom availability. If she needs this room, for example,
Right. Right. We'll work it. I just would rather have that discussion offline because we're gonna have to plan it out and I want to make sure all the details are covered.
Okay.
But we'll of course help.
What else?
I don't think there's any more continuing business. I think,
We have exec, right?
is there any new business of the
New
board?
business? No? Okay. So do I have a motion to adjourn to executive session in matter of personnel and litigation?
So moved.
Second?
And now you say all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. 8:55, we're adjourned to go into exec session. We will be back next Wednesday. And we'll see you at 7:30 as always. See everybody then. Good night. Thank you.